What's up, Dragon Ball fam? Mario Googs here with another Dragon Ball Super video. Now, this weekend, we don't have a Dragon Ball Super episode. They took a break for a week and we'll get a new episode 129 next week. So I figured, what a great opportunity to make a video that's not a reaction. And as you can see from the screen, the topic of this video is the best fights of the Tournament of Power that didn't happen. So these are hypothetical fights that we would have loved to have seen, or at least my opinion on fights I would have liked to have seen happen in the tournament because they would have been, I would say, entertaining to watch, and also the two adversaries would be pretty evenly matched, so it could swing either way. The fight would be, it'd be a well-contested fight. So now I'm going to start off this video with just discussing fights between individual characters. So fused characters are not, or merged fused characters are not valid options for these first couple hypothetical fights. So I want to start off with the first fight I would have liked to have seen that I think would have been one of the better fights in the tournament, would have been Berserker Kale versus Dyspo. Why? Because I like the whole thing with brute force versus super speed. This would have been the ultimate test between the two strengths of both characters, especially if it happened before Kale was able to control her power. Because later on, when she was fighting with Kefla, she was able to be more coherent about what's going on, instead of just being like all raged out like before, like Broly. So this is the first fight I would have liked to have seen that I think would have been one of the better fights of the tournament. I am going to mention another fight involving Kale, which would have been interesting to see, just to see how this is an honorable mention. This didn't actually make the list, but I'm going to mention it anyway because it would have been interesting to see. Golden Frieza versus Kale. Now here you see Kale after she was able to control her power and not be all raged out like before. So I feel that this would have been a good fight to see what she was able to do solo under these circumstances against someone like Frieza, who is a very, very powerful opponent. And aside from Goku and Vegeta, I think this would have been interesting because, like I said, unfused characters, besides Goku and Vegeta, Saiyan-wise, I believe she is the most powerful. Now, I know some Gohan fans are not happy with that statement, but I don't know. I was not very convinced with Gohan's performance in the tournament. I don't think his ultimate Gohan or elevate, I don't know what you want to call it, because his last official form was Mystic Gohan, and then he started training with Piccolo to not reactivate that, but I guess to go beyond that, but without going Super Saiyan. So I guess the name Ultimate Gohan has been thrown around. So I don't know. What do you guys think? How do you think Berserker Kale stacks up against Gohan? Who do you think is stronger? Is that a hypothetical fight you would have liked to have seen? I still think this is the more interesting fight, and this again is just an honorable mention. I think the real interesting fight would have been Kale Dyspo because of the whole brute strength versus super speed thing. But with that statement of saying that she is probably the third most powerful Saiyan at this point, I want to know what you guys think about that statement. This is just, this is all hypothetical, so this is my opinion. Next, and also, would you have liked to seen Berserker Kale versus Gohan one-on-one? But I think I mentioned this fight over that as an honorable mention because of Frieza's hatred for Saiyans. So now, we saw him eliminate Kaba and mention his hatred of Saiyans. So it would have been interesting to see him challenged again, because I think he would have been challenged against Berserker Kale and see how that fight would have gone. But again, this is just an honorable mention. Now, the other fight that does make the list, boom, Hit versus Vegeta. Aside from Vegeta being my favorite character and him being awesome, Hit was a super interesting character in the tournament, and just a very interesting character in general. And personally, I think he was eliminated from the tournament too early, because I would have loved to have seen him around. Actually, one of my favorite episodes was when him and Goku worked together to fight Universe 11. And I would have loved to have seen more of that, more of his abilities, because we got to see, some of his abilities versus Jiren, and his ability to constantly improve and adapt is very interesting character-wise. So I would have loved to have seen him versus Vegeta because of all that, and also because of the history. It would have been a rematch of the U6, U7 tournament. So it would have been interesting to see how they would have matched up after they both have gotten stronger, to see what the gap in strength is. Because the first time they faced each other, Hit destroyed Vegeta. Vegeta didn't stand a chance. Now, there's the whole argument, well, it would have been, if it would have been any different if it was Goku that would have faced Hit first and Vegeta would have observed Hit's technique. But Goku had the advantage of Kaioken then. So I think Hit still had the upper hand, and technically Hit did win against Goku. But it would have been interesting to see, because I think Vegeta had improved much more than Hit since they last faced off against each other. Then now this one, it's the last one I mentioned, because I think this would have been the most even fight. I would have loved to have seen this very interesting fight to see between Hit again and Toppo. I think this would have been an incredibly even fight, and I honestly, I don't know who I put on top. I'm slightly leaning towards Toppo, because, I'm talking about all these hypothetical fights, but I would love if you guys go back and watch my video that I ranked the remaining 8 participants in the Tournament of Power. This was as of episode 123, and some of the things I brought up in that video then at the time, and how some of those points that I discussed then are still valid now, I believe. And this is a fight that I would have loved to have seen. I would have loved to have seen Hit still in the tournament in general, but this fight right here, maybe as a prequel leading into the Vegeta Toppo fight, I think would have been just wow. Next on the list, Hit. This is an honorable mention. Hit versus Frieza. Just out of curiosity's sake, because I think Hit has the upper hand on Frieza, but still would have loved to have seen it. I think it would have been an entertaining fight, and Frieza in general is just entertaining to watch fight when he is outmatched, because of he's a wild card. His frustration, and you're seeing it against Jiren. He's like, fuck the rules, whatever. So he has, you don't know what he's capable of as far as he's a wild card. So I would have loved to have seen him been outmatched by Hit and see his response. Now, so that concludes the list of individual characters that I would have loved to have seen fight each other in the Tournament of Power. And so now I'm going to mention some of the fused characters would be eligible for the rest of the list. I don't have thumbnails for it, so I'm just gonna go back to this one. Kefla versus Frieza, because Kefla is undoubtedly stronger than Berserker Kale. So I would have loved to have seen how Frieza would have handled a fused Saiyan character, because Frieza's never... Wait, did he face Gotenks in Resurrection F? I don't even remember now. Oh well, I don't remember at the moment. So, alright, we'll say this is the first time he's faced a Patara fused Saiyan character. So I would have loved to have seen that. This is, again, honorable mention. Now, as far as fused characters, definitely on the list that I would have loved to have seen. I don't know why I'm going to go switch a thumbnail if there is no thumbnail. Kefla versus Dyspo, because we all know how much they toted about Dyspo's speed. I would have loved to have seen how he matched up against Kefla, because if you guys recall, when Goku was facing off against Kefla, both characters, both Kefla and Goku, were amazed. Even the spectators were amazed at Kefla's speed and power. So I would have loved to have seen Dyspo versus Kefla, and I think Kefla would have the upper hand, but still would have been entertaining to see, because maybe he would be someone that's up to par with the speed of Dyspo. So that was on the list. Then another one that's an honorable mention would have been Kefla versus Toppo. Would have been interesting. I'm not gonna talk about points about that as much, because I don't really have any. I'm just hypothetically would have been cool to see. And then the final one, which is one I had brought up when watching the episode during the reaction. I felt something that it was just something that was a curiosity that popped into my mind, was Aniraza versus Jiren. Because when Universe 7 faced off against Aniraza, that final scene, it was Gold Form Frieza, 17, Mystic Ultimate Gohan, whatever you want to call him, Super Saiyan Blue Vegeta, and Super Saiyan Blue Goku. All 5 of them teamed up against Aniraza, and they were still getting pushed back. It took 17 doing that whole thing that he did to knock out Aniraza's reactor. It took that to overcome Aniraza. So Aniraza was still more powerful than those 5 characters combined. So I would have loved to have seen Jiren alone versus Aniraza. I think that would have been, I would have loved to have seen how Aniraza stacked up against Jiren. So that's it for my best fights of the Tournament of Power that did not happen. I want to know what you guys think of my list. I want to know about fights that you believe would have been interesting to see that did not happen, and get some feedback from you guys. So, comment section is yours. Go at it. I would love to follow up with you guys, and I felt that this was an interesting thing to cover in this dead weekend that we have no Dragon Ball Super episode. And I believe we have one more week that there isn't an episode. I don't know which week it is. It's obviously in March, because the series ends at the end of March. But I would also like to ask you guys of an idea for a topic of another. I have some ideas of other topics I want to create a video on in that off week. And also afterwards, because after the series comes to an end, there aren't going to be any more reaction videos for me, obviously. So topics that you guys would like for me to create a video on. So have at it. So until next time, this is Mario Googs saying, Dragon Ball fam, thank you for all your support. And enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your week. I hope you're all excited for episode 129. Peace out.